I'm Maggie Pugas. My traditional name is Heikas. I'm from a territory of Goyastums, Quetzalcoatl, Ahuapmis First Nations. That's my territory. That's where my roots are from. I have raised 3 of my grandchildren. I've had my grandson who's with me now, the last one. He's 11, so I've had him since he's been born, co-parenting with Mom for a little while. My story starts back when my mother passed away when I was 1. I was raised by my grandmother. So in the direction of kinship, caregivers started with my grandmother, taking care of me, being also a survival of residential school. Yeah, the impact of the intergenerational impact of trauma through that colonization of residential school impacted my community significantly. I raised my family in a lot of what I knew. Having grown up in addiction, fully engaged in alcohol at age 11, to, I guess, medicate my own grief away, for being subjected to a lot of physical, emotional, mental, and sexual abuse through my experiences growing up, being a part of residential school and having that experience and surviving that and sharing that. I've had 4 children of my own. I'm part of the 60 Scoop. My daughter, Catherine Nicole Johnson, who is now adopted. I had her when I was 14. So it was about 16 years old when I was forced to give her up through the 60 Scoop. My journey has been one of hardship, survival, resilience, a commitment to my family has always been in the forefront of my life, especially where my oldest is concerned. I'm thankful that the people that raised my daughter, adopted her, allowed me in her life. Never gotten over it. Never, ever. I wasn't shown any direction of what it was to raise children. I survived on reaction. I only knew how to survive in that way. I didn't know have or understanding what it was like to communicate, to hold space for connection. Even when it was offered to me or in my life, I didn't even know how to handle it. Being displaced my whole life, I had no understanding of that. So when being a mother and raising my own children, having some form of relationship with my kids and my family. I had no parents, no mother or father. My mother died when I was 1. My father was an alcoholic. So I was raised by my grandmother and 3 uncles. So I really was disconnected right from the beginning and surviving in this universe, trying to find my way through, having 4 children before I was 20. Growing up along with my kids is really what happened. I had a son who is now deceased. His name was Christopher Roland Lee Johnson. He was my youngest. He made me a grandma. Same story. Had a child at 13. I couldn't say very much because I was a mother at 14. So that trauma residual throughout my family and the impact of substance use was a dominant perspective of what I knew. Well, I didn't know any different. I'm certain that my son, I know my daughter's FAS, and I'm certain that my late son was FAS or definitely FAE, alcohol effect. My experience and the blessings I've had through people, through teachers, certain people in my angels on this universe have come across my path. I've always been a communicator. I've always been a seeker. I've always been compassionately able to share from a really deep place. Been connected that way. So I feel like my journey has taught my family my own children, that resilience and that commitment to communicate. I survived in that with them. Now, through the experience of substances in my life anymore, my grandchildren have a sober grandma. They've been through a roller coaster ride with my substance use of alcohol, but I made some work in my life to educate myself for to become a counselor, a life coach, end of life doula. So I've been in practice of wellness for some time now, and through that journey, I have shed a lot of healing, moved into a lot of growth in that direction, and communicating my relationship with my children has shifted because I've done the work for myself and held space for my grandchildren in a way that I didn't for my children. Having a relationship, communication with them is I'm thankful for, because we live in a universe that needs that direction. We're so displaced in the universe in comparison to even my life, as broken and chaotic as it was, is still that life, but it's more exposed with the impact of homelessness. I'm so thankful I have a home with my kids, with my grandkids, living with my daughter, Lindsay, sharing space with her, to have a relationship with my daughter-in-law, who was in partnership with my late son. They have a child together, Carmen, and Carmen is in my life. We live together, co-parenting, Carmen and Charles. It's a beautiful life that we have now, together. So relationships with family, being open with the story of traditionally how we are as culturally Indigenous community that I want my grandchildren to know about, that I didn't know about when I was growing up. I'm thankful now because now I practice ceremony. I practice singing with them. I know the importance of holding that position in honoring culture, bringing that presence to them has made a big difference in their lives and also in mine. So I'm really thankful for that, learning and teaching. Addictions has been a big role in my family history, with the intergenerational trauma as the impact of residential school. Generations, my mother was in residential school, my father was in residential school. My grandmother didn't have the opportunity to know the urban setting of support now. She did it culturally, traditionally, through the big house. And she was one of the women in our family that held potlatch to make sure that our lineage, our treasure box is standing. We're a high-ranking family. So that was her form of wellness, how she got through her grief of losing her children to residential school. Having ceremony around that supported her. I witnessed my grandmother in alcohol. That put me at risk, being sexually abused by my grandfather and multiple community members. So to balance that direction out, like culturally, that's always been a direction that has demonstrated through the history of my lifetime and lifetimes before, how in wellness and healing, it was always done traditionally in the big house and in your home, restoring language. Well, I didn't have language. I was a part of the boarding program, so my grandmother lived in a lot of grief because of the direction of governments, taking the direction of still assimilating our children, and how that shows up today through the MCFD, Ministry of Children and Families. Given my experience with MCFD, my daughter had come to me pregnant with her son, the youngest one. She had two other kids that she was fighting for, but she had substance issues and needed my help. My profession at the time was a camp cook. So I had to take some long and hard thought about what was I going to do. to support my daughter. It was an easy decision to step up and support her culturally, advocating for her needs and rights to be respected from MCFD. That was the start of my journey with this direction of kinship care and how my relationship with my grandchildren and my daughter, bridging the communication with Ministry of Children and Families, creating the best of my ability of culturally informed care was huge. When my grandson Charles was born, he's born October 31st, 2013. He was born Halloween. And I remember when she went into labor, I immediately phoned the hospital and set up security because I knew MCFD were coming for her. And I was right. You know, my grandson was just born and MCFD were trying to get in, and they were quite upset that they couldn't have access to us. I refused any communication direction. We just had a baby. We wanted to celebrate in our joy and family connection and support my daughter and her grief. And she was experiencing so much from Ministry and Children and Family that it was being a mom, protecting my daughter, protecting my newborn grandson. I tapped into a lot of resources through the First Nations resources of Caregiver, which is Liquid Family Life Society, and Sassaman Society. They're First Nations agencies that resource supporting families like myself that are navigating MCFD, substance use, any form of the direction of wellness. That's what adapting from culture to urban relationships. That's something I knew about. Knew about AA at that time. My daughter knew of AA, NA. We used a lot of the urban resources to help support making sure that she had her children. She struggled with an abusive relationship. You know, he's that relationship was bonded by a lot of the trauma bonding, I would say. And again, it reflects the community, not only my community, but other communities, Indigenous communities, and how that connects through the relationship attraction in most cases for my family. I've always attracted the trouble sort of men that caretake. My daughter found one. He was a man that, in his own way, was a very generous person. But there was a lot of trauma in his world, and that's what he showed, was his trauma. Our world showed a lot of trauma in communicating. It wasn't an easy journey for us. I think only time things shifted for me is when I took care of myself and made that change for me, for my children and my grandchildren, to make a proper space for my grandchildren, that I didn't need to hold on to the past hurts or experiences to carry them through to my current day. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to release and heal so that I was able to hold a better space for my grandson, Charles. My experience in sharing my trauma, how that reflected I didn't know any different raising my own children, being a teenage mother. So my grandkids know everything about my story. They know of my age of having my children from 14 to 20. I've had 4 children, and they were in the relationship around that. You know, growing up with your kids and the relationship to alcohol and substance use. I'm a recovering addict myself. It was a place of not showing up with shame, but showing up with the experience of holding space of your story. And that is a part of my resilience and dedication to ensure that the understanding of a person with a substance use, such as your mom, you know, dysregulated with her feelings. We know what it feels like to be confused about what we're feeling. How do we unfold it? So, and that's some of the directions I know how to do is medicate it, do something that distracts me from feeling the emotion. Healthy communication by, our autonomic nervous system. The simplest form is good feelings, triggered feelings, and complete shutdown feelings. Where the simplest term that my daughter-in-law has taught me was red zone, green zone. Red zone, yellow zone, green zone. Given that simplicity to help relate that communication to children where they're experiencing dysregulated emotion, they can understand that red zone, green zone, and gauge where mom and dad are coming from, too, grandma's coming from. And making it as simple as that helped us communicate through a healthier form of safety for them.